Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. This happened a few years ago, and I want to share my story with you. The tale of how I got sweet revenge. You see, at the time, my fiancée, now my wife, and I were on a quest to find the perfect dresses for her bridesmaids for our upcoming wedding. We were driving all around town from one place to another in search of something that would make her happy. It had been a rainy day, and the roads were pretty slick. We had just left David's bridal and were making our way out of the plaza when it happened. As I was reaching the intersection where the plaza met the road, another car came turning in. Sadly, the driver couldn't hit the brakes in time, and he skidded right into the front end of my car on the driver's side. Fortunately, everyone was okay, but our cars had seen better days. As we got out of our cars to assess the damage, I couldn't help but notice that his car seemed completely unharmed, while mine had suffered a minor dent. The other driver was around 45 years old, and he had his son in the car with him. We exchanged names and phone numbers, and he explained that he was on his way to work. I told him we were out shopping for our wedding. I must admit, I was pretty naive back then when it came to handling accidents. The other driver suggested that since we were both busy, we should handle things ourselves without involving the police. My mistake was agreeing to that. We didn't call the police, and he told me to get an estimate for the damage so we could figure out what it would cost to fix. 2 days later, I took my car to a repair shop, and they quoted me $1,100 for the bumper replacement. I texted the other driver, and he assured me that in 2 months he would be getting scholarships when he returned to school, and he could pay me in cash at that time. Naively, I agreed, thinking it was a fair arrangement. A week went by, and I followed up with him regarding another estimate I had received, which was lower than the original one, just $900. But to my surprise, he never responded to my messages. I sent more texts over the next few days, but still there was no reply. That's when it hit me, he had bailed on me. Frustrated and feeling deceived, I decided it was time to take matters into my own hands and find this guy. All I had was his name, a useless phone number, and a general idea of where he worked. I took to Facebook, trying to find him, and I was pretty sure I had struck gold. I looked through his family members and found what appeared to be his son. My soon-to-be sister-in-law was around the same age as his son, so I decided to go full-on detective mode. I used her Facebook account, changed her last name to match theirs, and messaged the son. I told him I thought we might be cousins and asked a few questions about his dad's name and job. He confirmed the name and place where his dad worked. I was thrilled with the progress I was making. The next day, I drove back to the area where the accident had happened and found his workplace. I located his car and discreetly took pictures of his license plate. Armed with this information, I went to the courthouse and filled out the necessary paperwork. The clerk informed me that they could either mail the form to his work address or, for a $25 fee, have an officer hand-deliver it. Of course, I paid the $25. Thinking it would be a fitting way to embarrass him at his place of work. A few weeks later, we were summoned to court to see if we could reach a resolution before proceeding to a formal hearing. The other driver showed up, and we sat down with a mediator. She explained everything to all of us, and I told him I didn't want to go through with this, but he had stopped responding to me. He claimed that his phone had been stolen, so he had to get a new one. In my mind, this excuse didn't quite add up. The mediator asked him to step outside for a moment, and then cautioned us not to trust him, as his story didn't make sense. When the other driver returned, we read over the terms I had listed in the court documents. I had demanded $2,400, which included the original cost of replacement, gas expenses from driving back and forth, compensation for my time, and a little extra for the hassle he had caused. He agreed to pay, but he didn't like that I had gone to his job and taken pictures of his car. My response was simple. I didn't like that he had hit my car in the first place. A few months later, he paid the full amount in cash, and he had to cover our court costs as well. I sold my damaged car and used the money he gave me to purchase a new one outright. In the end, I benefited from the situation, but I learned a valuable lesson. Next time, I'll call the cops and save myself the headache. In the end, my pro-revenge was sweet, but it's always best to handle such situations through proper channels. I have had migraines since I was 3 or 4. Sometimes they start slow and sometimes they hit like a hammer. I can be instantly unable to function if they hit quickly. In college, this could be a huge problem. The only available medications just knocked you out, so you didn't care that you hurt and wanted to vomit. My freshman year in 1987, I was at a party for my roommate's boyfriend's birthday. I had never had champagne and didn't know it was a migraine trigger. I took a sip or two of champagne and instantly got a migraine. We were at someone's house about 20 minutes away from the dorm. My roommate didn't want to leave the party, so she arranged for a guy she knew to drive me home. She had no idea what he was really like. She just knew him from a few parties. On the drive that I thought was to my dorm, this guy pulled over on the side of the road in an undeveloped area. No one was around. He sexually assaulted me and left me on the side of the road. I didn't even know where I was, much less how to get back to the dorm or to a hospital. After a while, some lady found me curled up on the side of the road. She thought I was dead. Cell phones were not a thing, so she half-lifted me into her car, wrote down where she found me, and drove me to the nearest hospital. I could barely speak enough to tell the hospital staff my name. I was beaten black and blue by this guy. The hospital knocked me out for about 8 hours with pain medication and muscle relaxers. Once they were sure I didn't have a head injury. He only hit me in places that would not show. My roommate didn't get home until about a day after I did. She was staying at her boyfriend's dorm room. She probably wouldn't have come home as early as she did, but her parents called at the same time every weekend, and she had to be home for that. She was shocked when she saw how beaten up I looked. I asked her how she knew that guy, and learned she didn't really know him. He was just at a party now and then. I wasn't happy with the situation, or that she let some creep she barely knew drive me somewhere. She felt really guilty, but guys don't advertise that they like to hurt girls. She did have some information on the guy. He didn't live in our city, but instead went to a really strict school with a great law school. He was in law school and was visiting for the party. His dad was a really well-known lawyer for a televangelist's church. That was the beginning of what I learned about him. Remember, the internet was in its infancy and social media did not exist. I called some other people who knew him from the party and got some information from them. I learned his girlfriend's name. Then I went to the library and learned about this girlfriend, the church, the law school, the college he was at, and so on. I had photos from the hospital. I had declined to press charges because even then I knew that it would be hard to prove, even with all the bruises. It would be my word against his. He was from a good family and went to a strict college and law school. My family was not prominent, and I was wearing a miniskirt that night. At the time, it was normal for lawyers to smear victims based on what they wore, if they had a drink, and so on. I didn't want to have to deal with all of that. I just wanted to ruin his life without having it ruin mine. I got phone numbers for the dean of his law school, the head of the college overall, for his father, for his girlfriend, and for the person who owned his apartment complex. He lived in some fancy apartment owned by a guy who was a big donor to the college. It was for people getting master's, law, or medical degrees after they already had bachelor's degrees. The apartments were given out as a type of scholarship to the school, and they were supposed to be really nice. I wrote some letters, including tear stains that made some of the writing blur a bit. I included copies of the photos of my bruises. I said that I didn't want to press charges because I knew it would be an embarrassment to the college, law school televangelist, or his parents. I just thought they ought to know because he could harm a member of their family, congregation, or school. He could also be a huge publicity nightmare if he did this to someone else. And I didn't want that because I believed in their message. I called the girlfriend and told her that her boyfriend hurt and beat me. She cried and said he had beaten her too, but she thought it was her fault. I told her the assault was not my fault. I was trying not to be sick when he attacked me. I told her to stop seeing him and have nothing to do with him if he treated her that way. She said that her family would be upset, as he was from such a good family, and he was so well thought of at the law school. I didn't tell her that I was working on ruining that for him. I sat back and waited for things to happen after I mailed the letters. His family was shocked but not surprised. They wrote me an apology, saying he had been in trouble before, but they thought he had gotten better after the church intervened in his life. Apparently he hadn't, and they were cutting ties to him. The man who owned the apartments actually called me. He wanted to hear what happened from me so he could figure out if I was telling the truth. So I told him what happened and why I didn't press charges. He believed me and started eviction proceedings. A representative from the church called me to ask me to stop telling lies about the guy. I told them that they shouldn't protect someone like that. To ask girls he dated how he behaved because his girlfriend told me that he beat her when he got angry. They were shocked. I never heard from the college, but the dean of the law school called me. He asked if I told the truth, and I assured him that I had. DNA wasn't commonly used then, so it was my word versus his word. Just the accusation was enough to have the guy kicked out of law school, especially with the photos of my bruises and the tear stains on my letters. Apparently, those accepted to that law school should be above reproach. I don't know if they would have handled it the same way if I tried to prosecute the guy, but since I was trying to keep it quiet so I didn't harm the school's reputation, it meant I was a good person who could be believed. I was actually surprised that the letters had so much success. I expected his father to send a letter telling me to stop slandering his son. The letter saying they were cutting all ties to him was a surprise, but a good one. Sadly, it indicated that I was probably not the first to accuse him. About a year later, I found out he was working for a company installing carpet in homes. I called that company and told them that they were sending a dangerous person into people's homes. I even offered to send photos of the bruises if they wanted them. The woman that I spoke to was horrified. Just the idea that he had been accused of something terrible, and that I cared enough to call when I learned he was going into people's homes, was enough for her. I learned that not only did the company fire him, but they also called other companies and told them what a liability he would be if they hired him. He had started to drink heavily by that point, at least according to the friends who knew him at my school. I went on with my life, got therapy to help me cope, and eventually got married, and have had almost 30 years with an amazing husband. I don't know what happened to this guy, but I know he never became a lawyer, which was his dream. I know that I made his life a lot harder. I did Google him a few years ago. He has had many arrests and has spent quite a few years behind bars. I like to think that by getting him kicked out of law school and getting his family to understand that he was very much unreformed, I helped speed him into the defendant's chair in a courtroom. Okay, so this is a strange one that I got reminded of while doing my taxes. It's amazing what you can remember when you have a good memory and moments that are seared in your brain. So it was about 8 years ago when I was working at a Burger King. A guy walked in the middle of a lunch rush, ordered his food, got his receipt, and then immediately called me over and started yelling at me. Kevin, hey you, what's this? He shoves his receipt in my face. Me, that's your order, sir. Is something missing? Kevin, you're damn right something is missing. My rights are missing from this. I demand a refund for the excessive tax on here. Me, you're joking, right? That's put on automatically on everything in the UK. There's no way to do that. Kevin, get your manager. I want to make a complaint about this. So after a small back and forth in which I'm trying to get him just to let me serve others and drop the issue, I finally relented and got the manager, who we'll just call Jay. I explained the situation and that I'd tried getting him to drop it as it was busy enough, and I hoped to not bother Jay with this, as it's insane. Jay said that he understood and appreciated the effort, but he would take over for me. So Jay came out and took over dealing with this guy. I was on the far end side, so I was able to hear everything. Kevin, I want him fired, he said without missing a beat. Jay, why, what did he do? Jay asked, a bit confused. Kevin, He refused to remove the cost of the VAT when I told him to. I'm not going to pay for your taxes, that's your choice to do. I refuse to submit to your government tyranny through taxation. After hearing this, I had put the insanity together, and fortunately for the restaurant it was dying down. Yep, he was arguing with me and my manager so long that the lunch rush on a Saturday afternoon had dissolved. I asked if I should get the food or refund his meal, as he'd refused earlier for me to get his food and dismissed his complaint until he gets his refund. That was 30 minutes ago. Me. Should I have his food remade, boss, or should I start on other stuff? I asked Jay. Kevin. You should start going home, you're gonna be fired by the end of this. You and your allegiance to the taxman, he butted in. Jay, stay close and just sort out the coffee machines. Check the milk levels and stuff, you know the drill. Kevin. Why is he still here? I won't have him tax us good people your taxes just so you don't have to pay them. Where is your boss? Jay, in the Caribbean on holiday, he answered, which he actually was. Don't know why he told him where to find him, but I'm sure that he was safe. Kevin. Get him on the phone now, he demanded. I was thinking, holy crap, you want to make a long-distance phone call to a boss on holiday, just to have us fired because of your insanity. Me. Sorry boss, but I have to butt in here. You want him to fire me because I put the VAT on, despite that's what the tills do automatically, with every till in the country and likely the world. Then you want him fired for not firing me quickly enough, and you want him to call his boss, who's on holiday, to get that done. If I was called on my holiday with the power to fire someone, unless the place was burning down, I would fire that person. Do you do this in every place you go to, or did you suddenly just decide to make our lives difficult? The guy genuinely thought about it for a moment. Before answering, I have to make a stand somewhere. Jay, you have been arguing this for over 30 minutes and you decided to do this for what reason? He yelled. You could tell he was pissed. Me. Boss, he's not worth it. Just refund him his meal and then throw him out. He's not worth a damn. Kevin. After all this trouble, I want my food too, and it better all be fresh. Jay then pulls me to one side and tells me to refund his meal, but don't give it to him. Just make it look like I'm getting it, until the shopping center's security personnel got to the store to get rid of him. So I went back to the till and proceeded to rack up the refund while Jay called security as instructed. This guy had a really smug look as I put down fresh fries. As I pull up the fries, security shows up and I point out the Kevin. As security approaches him, he is shocked. Kevin. I'm not going anywhere until I get my food. I immediately walked over to enjoy the look on his face when I told him the cold hard facts. Me. Buddy, I'm not going to give you any food. We just knew that you wouldn't shut up until it looked like we complied with you. We also knew that you were a complete plank, so not able to work out our simple ruse, I gleefully explained. The wheels in this guy's head were clearly starting to catch fire because I think that I blew his mind with my display of mild intelligence. Kevin, I demand that you honor my rights as a free citizen of this country. I want my food, he suddenly exclaimed, as if it would suddenly change his situation. Me. No, now we've been more than generous with our patients dealing with you, and now you're going to leave with them, or I'll get the boss to press trespassing charges against you and suggest someone do a tax audit on you, I told him. NGL, I felt like I was playing in boss mode right at that moment. The high point of dealing with any difficult customer is always the moment when security shows up and you can just tell them to get lost without caring any longer. Kevin, I won't have this, he said, stomping his feet like a toddler. Security guard. Sir, please, this is getting silly now. How about we discuss this in the office, he said, trying to just get the guy to leave. Kevin, you'll help me take care of all this, he asked, thinking that he found an ally. Security guard. Sure, why not? Just follow me and I'll take care of it, the guy insisted. Kevin. All right, I'll come with you, he said calmly. The guy actually left with the security guard. So later on, the security guard came in for food, and Jay gave him a free meal so he could hear the story. So apparently this guy stayed in the security office arguing the toss with him for nearly 2 hours before finally relenting and going. It took 3 levels of management to come in before he couldn't get any higher without getting the owner of the shopping center to come in. but eventually he left, and no one was fired because of what he said. My advice to him is never do this again, because your insanity is greatly hated, and you're an idiot. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences and opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.